Hello and welcome to the channel, where today we'll be setting up Unraid with its base configuration and with the bare essentials as part one of this entire series of videos. So let's get started. Now we're going to start with Unraid on their Unraid download website, where you'll be able to download the USB creator, in which case you would just select the operating system you want, select the USB drive you want to do this to. Now, as in this very excellent example, this does not always work. I've got probably about a 30 to 40% chance that this just works, and I can just select the drive and go next, and I move on with setting up Unraid. But that is unfortunately not always the case. Now, from what I figured out, it seems to be the USB controller you might have in your system. So this may work with a different system, different port. If you're using ports at the front of the device, try ports at the back. If you're using ports on the laptop on the left, try ports on the right. Now, if this fails to work, I'm going to show you how to set this up manually. So the latest download section here. Okay, so let's close this off, and I'm just going to start from here. So this is what they call the latest download here. You would just download this, unzip it. I will show you in a second, and I will post these instructions below. So we're going to format the stick as FAT32, cannot be ext, FAT or NTFS, or basically any other formats. The USB stick must be called Unraid. This download archive is basically this here. Okay, that should all make sense. Now we're going to download this, and I've already done that as this is my third time running this. So here is the download. Here is the extracted file. Now, in order to make the USB stick, sometimes the Windows the Windows Disk Manager is not capable of deleting some partitions. Okay, as you see, like if this was the USB stick, we're pretending obviously here, this is my C drive, I will not delete that. We would not be able to clear this at all. Okay, so what I've just done is I'm using this partitioning tool, which I've got here. We will make sure that we know which disk we're deleting. Delete all the partitions in there. Now, if there's multiple, delete them. Now, in my case, at least in the system that I'm currently running, the disk must be formatted MBR. If it is GPT, it does not seem to boot. Okay, so in my case, it needs to be MBR. In your case, it might be able to be UEFI, because this does say that technically it should enable support UEFI. But in my case, keep that in mind, it's going to be MBR. So I have just deleted it. I'm going to create directory, FAT32, Unraid, and I'm just going to go OK, apply. Now this will take a second to generate a USB partition. Now in this case, this was already an existing drive that I'm just redoing for this exercise. Okay, here we go. I'm going to close this partitioning utility off. So the next step is going to be the file that you have downloaded. Go in there, copy everything, and paste it on the USB drive that you have just freshly wiped. Now keep in mind that would have wiped your USB drive, so if you have something on there you can't afford to lose, make sure you have moved it somewhere else. Probably a little bit late for that warning, but yeah. Okay, so the next step, we're going to make this disk bootable. all we're going to do is right click this and run as admin. We're going to click yes, hit enter, give it a second, hit enter. That black box should go away. Now let's close this off as well. Now we're basically done. So we've done this, run as admin. We don't need to do any of this other stuff because that is Linux. I will post this below. We're going to eject this drive, and I'm going to insert it into my system here that I'm using for this process. All right, I will pause right here. Okay, this is the test system. Now you will need to make sure that the USB drive is set as the primary boot device. If you have secure boot enabled, that will be a mixed bag. You probably will need to have secure boot disabled for this to function correctly. This is the first boot of Unraid. It will take a couple of minutes. Now keep in mind everything runs off the USB stick and it just gets booted to memory. Once it's on memory, the USB stick will barely be used. So you will only occasionally see writes changes when you are making any form of changes to the system. Now drivers and other settings will actually be kept on the USB stick, but not the app data folder, which I'll run through later. So as we can see here, there is the IP address. So I'm going to go to that IP address. Okay. Here we are. The first time you log in, it will force you to create a root password. Now the root is the main account for everything. It is truly the one account that can do everything. The other accounts will be limited to some extent. So make sure this is a strong password. If this is a trial, obviously in this case we're just going to run a trial. I do have some spare keys, but it's just too much effort to migrate the key all the time. In our case, we're going to say start trial. You can obviously purchase key. If you have got an email link from them, when you did purchase the key, you would redeem activation code here. Now recovery key, I think, is if you have a failed disk and you need to move it to this one, because the license is attached to the USB stick, not the hardware itself. Okay, and this is if you do have the URL, it's actually down here, it seems. Because when you purchase Unraid, you will get a URL. You post it in here and you'll go install, and it will just make it work. All right, now sign in. Okay, I have signed in. Now let's see if that actually worked. No, because my account was signed out. So start free trial, confirm trial. Okay, what this is currently doing is actually downloading the key, and it will install it on the USB drive, which I will show you in a second. So main, so flash drive, if we click this little thing here, there is going to be a trial key. There it is. That's what just got installed. Okay. Now, as I'm going to be breaking this off into many smaller tutorials, today we will just be going through the basic setup. So renaming the system, networking, enabling a couple of things, setting up the normal array and a quick ZFS array, and creating a share and a user, and then we will probably stop it at that. So let's get started. Now this should be the first thing you see when you get on the system. In order for us to rename the system, we're going to click this little cogwheel here, and HP lab, I will just call this HP lab server model. Okay, that shouldn't take too long. Done. So the next thing we're going to do is actually check out the settings, because we want to make a few changes before we actually get started with array. So let's go settings, disk settings. Okay, here is where you want to set this to yes. If you do not do this after you set up the array and you actually reboot the system, it will turn on, but the array will be stopped, which is not convenient. So we're going to hit apply this, and this is purely at the start, so we don't forget to do this later. All right, so we rename the system, etc. Display, we don't really need to change anything here. Date and time, make sure you're in the right time zone, because this will be important in case you want to automate anything. Wrong time zone means it will happen at the wrong time. As you can see, today is Saturday, 9th of November. I'm down here in Australia, so 10:30 a.m. Okay, now some things like networking and a number of other things you can actually not modify while the array is on. So I'm going to show you a few things before we get started. So networking settings. If you did need to set this as static, I usually do this in the router. You would set it here. If you had multiple network cards to this, by default it will be active backup. So it will accept one of them as active, and if you plug it into the other one and remove the first one, the other one will just work. But you have various options here, all kinds of load balancing, some that do require extra hardware, some that don't. The active backup or the last two options are probably, if you do want to balance multiple ports, is what you'll be choosing in most cases. Okay, enable VLANs. If you do intend to use VLANs in here, you can say yes, no. For me, it doesn't really matter. So that's probably as far as we're going to go in networking. We've set a time. Now let's enable SMB multi-channel. Now, if you do use multiple network cards and you are bonding them, depending how you're doing things, if SMB multi-channel is not enabled, it may not function correctly. So we're going to say here, yes. Okay, the rest can stay the same. Now we're just going to say apply. All right, now that we're done with that, now networking file system. If you don't know what that is, it's basically well, a networking file system. So it will usually be a network attached storage beyond this one that will host some data, and you can actually mount it to here. I will show you later on. If this is not enabled, you will be lacking that function in certain parts of this video, so we're going to just enable this now. Okay. Now let's go back to settings. Docker. Now for most things that you'll be running on here, the default 20 gigs is fine. If your storage capacity allows it, set it a little bit higher, because all the Docker images you will have will actually be loaded into here. If you are running any larger Docker images, like some that might have with AI learning or image recognition, they tend to be 5, 10, 15 gigs in size, and you're going to quickly start getting warning messages that the Docker image is getting full. Again, if you do get to that point, you can just switch this to no, apply, the Docker will turn off. You will actually see this option there, and then you can increase it at that point. Keep in mind, turn off all your images before you do this, because I've had scenarios where it doesn't shut them down correctly. So switch this to no, increase size, go apply, and we're done. Okay, done. Now I think we can probably move on to creating the array. So the way we create the array is here in the main section. Now in my case, I will just show you briefly. We will set the Samsung as the parity, the Kingston as the actual data drive. Now, if I had multiple, you would just stack them here. It does not really matter in what order you put them. But once you lock them into this order, it's a little bit tricky. Not tricky, but you'll have to go through a process which may seem scary to actually reorganize them. Because personally, it would drive me mad if I had a gap of 3 drives for no apparent reason. Okay, so I will just leave it at this. Now, if you are using mechanical hard drives for your main storage, you might want to accelerate the performance of it with a cache. So the way we create a cache down here under pull devices, we're going to say add pull. You can leave it labeled as cache. If you actually wanted the cache to have multiple slots, you can actually have multiple slots. In this case, we're just going to add 1. Okay, and we're actually going to use that Samsung drive that I showed you before for this process. So this is basically it. We're going to just hit start. Keep in mind, when we do this, any data that you have in there will be overwritten. It will be gone. Okay. This shouldn't take too long. We're almost there. So once this is actually assigned this, you will see down here it's saying, hey, we will have to format this disk. We're going to say yes. Again, warning, anything on that disk will be gone permanently. There's no undo button. All right, now that we have done this, I will run through a few things and then I will actually loop back here and show you how to create the ZFS pool in just a basic fashion, which is very similar to how the main array was just set up. Okay, so let's get started and make a user. Most of the items in Unraid make sense. You've got this main bar at the top. In this case, we're going to create user. Now, as this is part of a range of labs, I will have these consistent probably across everywhere. Test lab, that is misspelled on purpose. All right. Now this user that we just created, this will be used to access network resources. So you do not want to mount anything to root from your network because that's a bad idea. And I actually think you can't from memory. I might be wrong. I have a feeling you can't use the root account to access networking resources. It's for administrative purposes only. Now I think you can elevate this account to an admin of sorts. But I've never needed to do that, so, and it's not obvious here. Clearly it has some form of permissions here. I might figure that out later and post it below. Okay, so we've created a user. We're going to actually now create a share. So now what we actually see here is, because I've used these drives in a previous video and it actually remembered some of the shares, even though the USB stick was formatted clean, it has actually created this for me. Because I will show this at a later part when I go through the add-on section, the recommended add-ons in another video. Stuff on the disk can actually persist. Now in this case, as you can see, the cache I've used in a previous video, in a previous recorded session of this video, and the data is still there. So if I did actually have anything in here, it would have persisted. It would have just been in there. Okay, I will delete this. So in order to delete a share, it actually needs to be empty. So let's go back to shares. We're going to click this little arrow at the front and we're going to as this is the base image without any plugins, we do lack some luxury items that I'm used to. So we actually don't have a way to download these folders. So in this case, we're just going to make this share go live by going media. Down here, we're going to just say yes for the export tab. And we're going to leave it public because, you know, we're using this in our house. You might want to set it to private if you plan to use this in a shared environment. Okay, okay, let's go in here and just delete these folders. They're gone. So if we go in, oops, sorry, in here, they should be gone. So the way we would delete this share, we go in there. Oh, sorry, from up here, we go in the share. Now we actually see this little delete button. We're going to say delete, yes. Has been deleted, done. Is there anything in G10? No, so we will just delete this as well. Delete. Or 10G, sorry. Now I will not be explaining all the details here, but anything that you install on the system will actually end up, sorry, any applications you install will end up in app data. iSource, if you do need to plan to use the VM manager, will go in iSource. And these you can just make available on the network by selecting it. And down here, export. Export just means make available on network. It's a little ridiculous. We just say yes, and now you should be able to upload like Windows 10, 11, or whatever else you need on here. So let's go back to actually the array. Now, as you can see, the array that we started before, 10 more minutes to go, but we're actually just going to cancel it. I'm going to say proceed. And I'm going to stop the array. So anytime you need to make any changes to the disk, you will need to stop the array. We're going to say proceed. Now, if I had multiple disks, I would have probably shown you this in one go. But because I don't have multiple disks in the system, it's just a small form factor HP. This will just have to do. Now, I'm going to create a ZFS pool, just a quick mini guide here with just a basic ZFS pool. Now, because this is already assigned, it will freak out if I just take it away. So it says missing, and I can't assign a disk that's smaller, as you can see. So sorry, actually, let's go. No, can I assign that there? It might let me. And add pool, ZFS with, let's say, 6. ZFS. Yeah, it needs to be lowercase. I always keep forgetting. Oh, so it will let me. Cool. I thought I might need to recreate the array. Nah, I thought so. Okay. So if you do need to recreate your array, you need to move this from the array to actually a ZFS pool. Now this will definitely delete any content you have in there. It will be gone. Now, as of version 6.12.13, which is still the current latest version, there is a version 7 just around the corner. You will need to have something in the primary array, otherwise you will not be able to have a ZFS array. So in case you wanted to have a full ZFS array of, 10, 15 drives, I wouldn't recommend more than 10 in one ZFS 1, which is what this currently supports. Because the chance that something goes bad is very high at that scale. So what we're going to do here is recreate the array from scratch. So the way we recreate the array, if we've messed something up, now in most cases, if you are just changing this configuration, if you are just changing the configuration, you will just do this first part, reorganize them as you see fit, turn the array on, and you'll be up and running. So we will go to settings. Sorry, we will go to tools, new config, right here, new config. If you want to keep all the assignments, you can say keep all the assignments, and then you will be able to move them around. Now in this case, I do not want to keep any of the assignments. I will say yes, I'm aware. Done. So what that would have effectively done is cleared all the assignments that were locked. This gives me the freedom to allocate them as I see fit. So I'm going to go here. We're not going to use the cache pool, ZFS. Now the way you actually turn this pool down here into ZFS, if you don't do anything special, they'll just be a normal pool. We will click on the ZFS tab. Now here under file, system file type, we will say ZFS, and you get options RAID 0 with 2 devices or mirror with 1 group of 2 devices. Now we don't have many options here because we only have 2 disks. There would be a number of options available to you if you had 4 or more disks, or 3 or more, I think technically. So I will turn on compression because that's probably fine for everybody. Auto trim, yes. Enable, yes. We're going to say apply. Done. So we've effectively created a ZFS pool. All we need to do now is start the array. The array is starting. This shouldn't take too long. We're almost there. This is prompting us that, hey, we will need to format these 2 drives. We're going to click yes. Data will never be recoverable. We understand. And format. And this should only take a second. All right, we're basically up and running. Now, because in the primary array, we don't have a redundant disk, in certain places it will give us a warning that we're not redundant. This is just a sacrificial disk, so we don't really care about it. It's just there because we needed to have something in there to make the ZFS array. Now, the big benefit with Unraid these days is actually the normal array. The normal array is very flexible. As long as the primary parity drive or the main parity drive is bigger than or the same as any of the other disks, you can mix and match this as you see fit. You can swap them out with some planning fairly easily. Now I will show that part probably in the add-on part with a utility called Unbalanced, where you can just move data from a single disk to another disk. That way when you pull it out, it will not need to rebuild the whole array. That will save you plenty of time. So the main primary array in Unraid is very flexible. There's pretty much no limits on how to use it. Regarding performance, you will be bottlenecked by whatever the parity drive is at. So if you only have 1 parity drive and it's a mechanical hard drive doing, let's say, 250 megs read write, most of them don't do that. They'll probably be in the 80s to 200 probably. It does not matter what the other disks are, how fast they are, how many you have, you'll be limited by the parity drive, because it will write parity as you're writing to the disk. Okay, I assume that should make sense. Now with the ZFS pool, you do not have that limitation. Now ZFS is a ZFS. It's very fast, very resilient, as long as you configure it correctly. We have only basic information in this case, which is pretty much none. We just know that array is there, and that's about it. For everything else, I will go through in the add-on tutorial of this a range of videos. Okay, so the array pool is live. Now, if we did want to make a share, now we did create a user, so we're just going to make a share. I did have that media one, which I deleted. I will just create a share, add share. I will call it media. Now, at the moment, you get presented with array or ZFS. Now, the array is obviously usually the larger thing. ZFS is the faster thing. Now, if we did have the normal array in the cage configured, we could set this to actually sit on cage, which would be another option here, with the secondary location being, so if we do ZFS, let's say we wanted to use ZFS as a fast storage media, we can set array as secondary. So we will basically be utilizing the ZFS array for all our fast stuff, and eventually mover will run, which I'll show you briefly in a minute, which is an application that will move stuff from ZFS to the array, as you see here, or array to ZFS. You'll probably want a ZFS to array, so if you have not used something in a while, mover will say, hey, this hasn't been used, move it off, be gone. This will free up space on the ZFS array for you. Now that would be the same if you had cage and array secondary. It will basically move stuff from the cage, which is very quick and might be only, let's say, 256 or 512 or a terabyte, where the array could be, you know, tens, maybe even of hundreds of terabytes. Okay, that should kind of make sense. Now in this case, I'm just going to set this on ZFS. Actually, I'll do ZFS array because that'll be fine. So primary destination for media will be ZFS, which is only 500 gig, and then eventually it will move it onto the array, which in our case is a small NVMe drive, but this will be fine for the tutorial. I'm going to say add share. Now, if you did need to exclude any of the disks that you did not want to write to those, you can obviously nominate that here. As in split level, now you can just click, if you're ever not sure what something is, you can click on its name and it will explain what it does. So you can pause here and read through this if you want. It's basically how it's going to split the folders up and how many trees it will go down, folder trees, before it will write data to another disk. Because the unique thing on Unraid is the data is actually kept on each disk, but not stripped across this. Each disk is its own entity. So the benefit is, if the Unraid server goes belly up, it's gone. The array is probably still recoverable, at least to some extent, because each disk is its own entity. So you would just create a new config, load those disks that are still alive, and start the array. It will do a quick check, and all the data that is still remaining on those disks will still be there. So if you had a 4 gig movie and it's on disk 3 and disk 2 blew up, it does not matter. You only use the content that's on disk 2. Now, if your parity drive was in place and set up correctly and disk 2 did die, you just whack in disk, you run the config, new config that I showed you before. You will keep all the settings. So we will go to new config. Okay, the array must be stopped. So let's just do that quickly. All right, I'll just show you briefly so you know what I'm talking about. So if your array did go belly up, because obviously it will not like you to put a second disk instead of, you just say new config, you say I want to keep all. Yes, I want to do this. You go apply, done. You go to the main array, and let's say this 3 died or this 2 died. You would obviously just select the new disk that you plugged in, leave the other ones as they were, start array, and it will start rebuilding the array. Now you will get a warning that says, hi, one disk is missing, the new disk will need to be formatted. And you will also be prompted here if you wanted to write changes to the parity. So you will tick that. It will pull the data from the parity disk if we did have one, resolver the disk that failed on you, and all the data will be there. You know, I mean, it could be minutes to hours to days, depends on how much data we're talking about. My array on the big systems they can take over a week to resolver. Okay, now I think we covered ZFS. Media, did I actually create a share? It does not matter if I didn't. Now the one thing we still want to do is just install a sample application. So yeah, I did create media. I just want to make that available on the network. Okay. Done. Now the one benefit with Unraid is it has an app store. So we're going to click app. This will install the community applications. Okay, we go done. Accept a disclaimer, because a lot of the applications on there are managed by third parties. Some are managed by the original developer, and I'll show you. So we're just going to agree. Yep. Now in our case, we'll just install Uptime Kuma. It's a very easy application to monitor your uptime statistics for some website. For literally just went in there, click install. If you did need to change something, this port here, or you know, generally the locations where it is, you just want to leave it as is unless you know what you're doing. If you needed to do any custom settings, you can bring up advanced, because sometimes you will need to, which I'll highlight in the Plex video, which is probably coming soon as well. You will need that advanced tab a lot to pass through a graphic card and whatnot. So we're just going to apply. What this is doing right now is actually downloading the Uptime Kuma latest image from Docker or wherever else it seems to be hosted. And it will install it with the settings that we provided it. Now with Uptime Kuma, it will ask us to make a account. So it is installed. We can actually just go here under Docker. Now that is the Plex configuration from my previous thing that it's picked up from the disk. That can stay there. Now Uptime Kuma, you will just click it. You get a few options: restart, pause, stop. Okay, now will it let me do this? Let's hope it does. Cool. So you can just add a monitor to you can modify a number of things. Certificate, you know, ignore. We're just going to do these two and hit save, just so you can see the application running. Now I'm not going to show you how to use Uptime Kuma. This is just a quick guide to install something in Unraid. Now one of the benefits with Unraid here is also if you have created a template, like let's say this Plex, I have just removed it. Yep, delete the image, I don't care, it's gone. And that was a really good image that had really good settings. I can just say add container. I can find it from the previous template. Now in this case, because that had the files, but it didn't actually have the template, you'll be able to just select it from the previous and just apply, and you will install it again. Okay. Now I will show a lot of these other options once we install some add-ons, but in in the applications, you can actually set bridge, which will become the host interface, as you can see here, with a port number, or you can specify a custom network that will have to be an address that's not currently used in your network. You know, 192.168.1.200, because the high numbers are rarely used unless you have a really big household, and that was obviously an example. In my case, I could say 200, and uptime comma will be reprogrammed to be on 200. Okay, done. This will stop working. All right, now uptime comma is on 200, as you can see. You do not want to have too many applications on one number. I prefer to split them out and in most cases have them in their own network. But this will just have to do for now. So there's uptime comma. Okay, I think we've covered everything. So we covered ZFS, we covered the main array, NFS, SMB multi-channel, networking, this, renaming, time. Okay, one thing I can just briefly show you here under settings, management access. Now, if you do install the, it's called Unraid Connect application, you will actually be able to access this remotely through their relay. Now, it will force you to enable SSL, UPnP, because you need to open the ports, which is a little bit risky. I wouldn't do it. But even without UPnP, you will need to set a certificate, provision it, and then you'll be able to use it through Unraid Connect, which I don't have here. But it's something I will show in a later video. So for now, I will just leave this as is and not bother with changing anything. I will just exit. Now I will show you how to back up the Docker images, how to manage your VMs and back them up as needed, how to actually manage ZFS properly once we install a few add-ons, because currently this is a fairly simple setup. The shares are very limited. We don't really have any buttons to manage it. We have no temperature sensors. We have no nothing. So all the good stuff is actually managed through the App Store. And there's already an update. All the good things are managed through the App Store with add-ons, plugins, and Dockers. Okay, so I think I will call it a day for now, at least for this part of the video, and hope to see you here next time. Have a good day.